roughly on the same pair?
41.
Okay, well, it's a little more than that.
56.
Oh, fuck.
No?
You have lost this showcase showdown, Mr. Bestel. Bob Barker is very disappointed in you. Hold hands and close your eyes. It's midnight, and you're listening to the Ghost Story Guys. Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bestel.
And this is the show where we talk about spooks, specters, and all the other things watching us from the shadows beyond the campfire. Some conversations only make sense after the sun has set, and this is most definitely one. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 217. And as always, we're coming to you from that tiny mountain cabin you dream about, but can never quite reach. Paul Bestel, my friend, I got it right on the second try, so that's not bad.
Well done.
Thank you.
Proud of you.
How are you doing, man?
I'm all right, thanks. It's all right, yeah. Pretty recharged and refreshed after a lovely weekend in the fabulous city of Liverpool, indulging in one of my other loves, which is musical history. So, yeah, brilliant.
That sounded so cool. You were telling me about that last night. Unexpectedly emotional as well, you were saying.
Yes, yeah. Strange, I mean, there's a lot of my life has been touched by Liverpool, from family living in Birkenhead, which is just across the Mersey, to some of my favourite bands and things like that. And on the Sunday we were going down to the Beatles story, which is a new sort of immersive audio visual experience where you sort of wander through the Beatles' life, as it were. On the way down there, we popped past the Hillsborough Memorial to the fans that died, and I had to have a touch because obviously I had a friend who was killed at that game.
Oh, okay.
Joe, he was 27 when he died that day.
Jeez.
And so that surprisingly upset me. I wasn't ready, because I know his name's on that memorial, but I don't know whether because it was such a beautiful day or whatever, that kind of set me off. So I had to have a minute. And then when we went up to the beautiful church that they've got at the top of Bold Street, which is obviously the famous time slip street, but we didn't have any. So we had a wander around there. There was a wonderful local sort of craft market inside this bombed out church from the war, which was lovely, and a very talented young lady singing some up-tempo songs to get everybody in the party mood at 11:30 on a Sunday morning in Liverpool, which didn't take too much doing by the sounds of it. So yeah, we went and ended up down at the Beatles story, which was fascinating, really. Obviously, most people know quite a lot about the Beatles and stuff, but there was loads of like lovely little things in there, you know, personal letters, fan club cards, and like one kid had become the youngest ever member at 4. And so there were like pictures of his little leather jacket with the Beatles written on it and all this. And the Beatles had sent him a letter from them all, making him an honorary member because he was their youngest fan. And so they got all these original stuff like that. So it was really fascinating. Got this beautiful White Room, which is essentially a reconstruction of John and Yoko's White Room that they had in their own property. And both me and Julie just became suddenly overcome with emotion. It was a very strange situation because I know all about it. It's one of the first, probably the first celebrity death I became very aware of, or one I saw the impact of, because obviously family and friends, parents and stuff were obviously all big Beatles fans. That they'd all grown up with the Beatles and John Lennon, and so for him to be assassinated in 1980 was quite a shock for a young lad, and my friends as well, seeing our parents upset as they were. But yeah, it wasn't like I went, oh my God, he's dead? You know what I mean? I know exactly what happened. I know why it happened. I know who killed him. What the whole shitty situation was about Mark Chapman, the horrible bastard, and it just hit me. It literally, they said, oh, people like to have a few minutes here, and you think, yeah, all right. And I don't know, within 30 seconds, I was just like really emotionally connected to that space. It was really strange. Interesting.
I mean, that can happen, though. I feel like sometimes there's these experiences that just, it's like you've seen a movie before, but you're at a different point in your life, and so you just feel it in a different way. I actually had a similar thing about a week ago. I left, maybe 2 weeks ago now, I left the coffee shop where I always go in the morning. And I was walking home and I walked past this little boy playing with his grandfather. And it was just cute. I was like, oh, that's cute, you know. And all of a sudden, I felt the grief of my own grandfather's loss. It's recently 20 years since he passed. So this is something, you know, I've litigated this over and over. This is like kind of a settled law, so to speak. But all of a sudden, man, it was like he had just gone. And I wanted to, the emotion was so strong. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I was concerned I was going to sob out loud on this quiet suburban street. I had no idea where it came from, and it lasted for 45 minutes, and then it went, and it hasn't happened since. And I haven't like grieved like that. You know, I think maybe it took about 3 years to really kind of get over it, because he was kind of closer to me because, you know, my old man was a piece of shit. But it just, sometimes things hit you in a certain way.
Tell you what was very powerful as well, the day before we'd gone to see the Holly Johnson Experience, and they got some logbooks from some of the gay support groups in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
And so that you could read the notes of people that had rung them up in like 85, 86, 87. All these people ringing up saying they thought they had got AIDS, they were all scared to go to the doctor, they can't tell the family. And you could dial an old phone, an old rotary dial phone, and you could listen to people talk about their experiences of being a gay person in the 1980s in Britain, and all the homophobia and Clause 28 and all that shit that the Tories brought in, trying to criminalise being gay again, despite us only making it not illegal, I think, in 1967 here. Because before that, if you were gay, you could be sent to prison.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we've always been a really sort of forward-thinking country here.
Yeah. So
yeah, that was quite powerful. And obviously, you know, Holly being a gay man through that period, that the amount of people that he inspired to be themselves, and that's what people should always be allowed to be, and celebrate who they are rather than that. It's very, very powerful. But you know, it is what it is. As for me, my entire cultural upbringing has been enmeshed with gay people's talent, and I don't understand how you can appreciate art, literature, and music and not be an ally.
Yeah, a lot of mental gymnastics, unfortunately. And on that subject, just briefly, a brief digression into the real world. We have not had a chance to update our mental health message, but we're going to have to, because the 988 number is no longer valid. The U.S. government, I know, yeah, the U.S. government has decided that their descent into just straight up fucking villainy, and if you disagree with me, get fucked, I don't care, don't listen, and they're eliminating that number. So if they have not done so already, they have, as I understand it, this has been decided. So we will be re-recording that and providing alternative numbers, because I know the Trevor Project has a hotline set up for people. So that's something at least. But anyways, getting back to the spooky things, there was a little bit of a synchronicity between us on regarding the Beatles on our respective adventures. So on the weekend, I was contacted by a friend of mine, Colin, who I haven't seen in, I usually see him I should say, when I'm in Victoria. We usually catch up. But he is a retired fella. He's recently retired, and him and his wife were in Hamilton, which is about an hour and a half away. So he said his wife was working, so he asked if I wanted to get coffee, and I suggested, well, instead of coffee, let's go to Dundurn Castle, which our listener Trevor had recommended on the previous Talk Spooky. And Dundurn Castle is this Italianate villa outside of Hamilton, which was built in, I think it was 1835. Because they were saying it just straddles the border between Georgian and Victorian architecture. And so anyways, we did that, which is a lot of fun. And we went for lunch in Hamilton afterwards. We were talking to this waiter about music, and Colin had actually seen the Beatles live when he was a kid in 1964 in Vancouver. And you were saying that when you were at that exhibit, they had a poster for that North American tour there with Vancouver on it, which was just a kind of bizarre coincidence. But yeah, and Dundurn Castle was very cool. It is, in fact, very haunted. They don't talk about it on the tour. It's primarily a historical tour, but if you are at all sensitive to vibes, which both Colin and I are, you can definitely feel it. Especially there was a room upstairs. I want to say it was one of the guest bedrooms, the guest sitting rooms, was pretty unpleasant to be in. It's a beautiful home, but just the vibe of it was it was like being in a fog. It was very uncomfortable. And there were several places in the basement where it was just hard to be there. It felt like it's kind of an unpleasant energy down there. I don't know if it's a conscious haunting or anything like that. Again, they weren't really keen on kind of that sort of thing, but it just feels like the energy there is in certain places is not happy. And the basement at Dundurn was the servants' quarters. So it does make you wonder if something like that, if that played some part in it, because it seemed like a very demanding life to be working for these people.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that was I finally got to have a spooky adventure, which was pretty cool. And even cooler, on this episode, we are telling more stories from my homeland here in Canada. We are telling stories this time from the province of Saskatchewan.
Whoa.
Yes, sir. And this was interesting because we have sort of been spoiled for choice for stories on Ontario and Vancouver Island and Alberta. Saskatchewan was harder. And consequently, the format will be a little more free, sort of free flowing this time. And we were talking to our patron, Yana, last night, and she was saying, "Oh, that's odd. I wonder why that is." And I think I know. And I think it's because the population of Saskatchewan, the entire province, is roughly equivalent to that of Vancouver. It's about 1.2 million people in all of Saskatchewan. And I think Vancouver is about 1 million. So I think there are fewer people to see and report these things than there are everywhere else. I mean, even here in London, there is 400,000 people. So in this one city in Ontario, we have fully a third of the province of Saskatchewan. But before we can get to stories of Saskatchewan, we have to thank our patrons.
This one's for the patrons.
Patrons, we could not do what we do without you. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. For real, guys. Every single person who downloads the Ghost Story Guys, and hello to all of our new listeners. We've had a massive influx of new people, which is amazing. All of you help make Ghost Story Guys who we are. But folks who support us financially, you are the true MVPs. Without you, we could not do this. And while we'd like to thank all of our Patreon, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube supporters, we would especially like to thank our latest ones. They are
Lavender's Blue,
Fiona and Mervils,
Lee Meaden,
A54,
and Teresa B.
Again, thank you so much. From the bottom of our terrible hearts, we cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. And if you'd like to have your name read out here and also get access to bonus conversations between me and Paul, extra shows, early ad-free release, all kinds of cool stuff. I just put out a Ghosts of Fort McMurray show, and Paul and I always put out every 2 weeks at least a 45-minute long, usually, bonus conversation where we talk about just about everything under the sun, some of it quite terrifying, and all kinds of other cool stuff. Our monthly live stream. Again, you'll find all that information at patreon.com/ghoststoryguys or by becoming a friend of the cabin on Apple Podcasts or YouTube. And you can get access to all of that by clicking the link in the show notes. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with stories of Saskatchewan.
Confidence. It was late 2005, and I was living in Prince Albert when a friend that just came to town rented a house for himself. A few days after he'd moved in, he tells me that the house is haunted, and he won't stay there. Being a skeptic, I didn't believe him. We even spent a few nights trying to spot it, but we didn't see a thing. Still, my buddy insisted that there was a black shadow walking around, and abandoned the house. A few weeks had passed, but he still had the keys, so we had a little party. Around 1 or 1:30, everyone decided to leave and go home. I decided, rather than go home, I'll just stay here at the house. My buddy strongly suggested that I didn't stay there, but I wasn't afraid, and I didn't really believe anything was there anyways. So everyone had gone, and I was all alone. I went to the bedroom, and just after I laid down, I started to hear coughing. I dismissed the unusual sound for somehow being able to hear the neighbours. Then I started to hear someone was walking around in the house, and at this point I was scared for the first time in my life. I wanted to jump out of the window when at almost 3 a.m. exactly, someone wearing boots came stomping up the stairs straight towards my room, paused outside the door, then through the wall, and the shadow of a human-like figure started to form in the room with me. I was frozen, but when I saw the shadow I sat up and looked away for only a second. When I looked back, it was gone, and there were no more noises. I lay there, unable to get up and leave, when my buddy finally came back to see if I was all right. I never went back and my buddy cancelled the lease. But now I know. There's more out there.
All right. So I think actually this first story is a really great illustration of the difference between Saskatchewan and Alberta, because Prince Albert is a town of, guess how many people are in Prince Albert, or in the city of Prince Albert, the gateway to the north of Saskatchewan, roughly on the same pair.
41.
Okay. Well, it's a little more than that.
56.
Oh, fuck.
No?
You have lost this showcase showdown, Mr. Bestel. Bob Barker is very disappointed in you.
Hey, this is me from the future. I am so very wrong about the population of Prince Albert in this segment that I've trimmed it down. I don't know what I was smoking. The actual population of Prince Albert is 37,756. So you can disregard anything I say about the size of that lovely city. Thanks to our patron Gene for catching that. Again, I don't know where I sourced that information. Enjoy the show.
1,171.
Closer. 800. It is about 800 people in the town of Prince Albert.
That's a lot of Prince Alberts.
It's a wonder they can fit them in that can.
Is that a thing in Canada? I was just checking there. I thought you were shocked at what I was referring to.
No, I was mourning my awesome joke of how many of them could fit in a can, but the dick thing was funnier, so... Google Prince Albert, kids. Ask your parents.
It's a weird thing when you meet someone with one, I have to say.
Really?
Yeah, have you never met somebody with one?
I got to be honest with you. If I have, if it has not come up in conversation, which I assume probably means no, because I imagine if you have one, you bring it up in conversation.
Yeah, I clearly have spent more time in pub toilets than you have.
That is an accurate statement, yes.
For a variety of reasons.
Well... There's a lot of unanswered questions there.
Yeah.
There's so much Paul Bestel lore we still don't know, folks.
This is true. Keep on wanting more, baby. That's the way of the world.
That's right. Oh, God. So anyways, Prince Albert, like I say, very, very tiny town in sort of heading north.
What you were going to say there?
It's just because it's cold.
Anyway, I'll stop
The
there.
metal makes it cold, that's all.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what people like that say.
Yes, people like that, those guys. Who says that? Anyways, it was cold. That's not the point. So like I said, Prince Albert, very, very small, but it has a fairly well-known legend of a ghost train, which, you know, you and I have talked about these many, many times, this idea where you see like a light coming towards you along train tracks and, you know, like Vancouver has one as well, one of these stories. So I found this account and I haven't been able to verify it, but this was a note about the Prince Albert ghost train. So this person says, I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Prince Albert. In that area, there is a legend of a ghost train if you go to a certain spot. I have so many friends claim to have seen floating lights. They grow in size as they come towards you. These friends will swear to this day that they have in fact seen the mythical ghost train of St. Louis. I have been there many times and have never had those experiences. It's a type of place teenagers would go to party. I always suspected they were just having visions caused by the party supplies. Okay, well, that's bullshit. You're an idiot. That's fine. Man, I'm feeling sassy today, Paul.
Woo!
As civilian GPS technology got better, a group of grade 12 students decided to map out the old train tracks to solve the mystery. They used radios posted long distances apart with a team of parents helping them. The St. Louis light turned out to be the headlights of cars on the highway over a kilometer away, which happened to make strange lights appear through the woods. They could replicate the light using high-power flashlights. These kids did this for a science fair. They ended up getting second place that year in Canada's National Science Fair. Some believe the lights predate the inventions of cars, but that's just part of the legend. There you go. I gotta say, I think the footsteps thing, like it's probably the thing we encounter most on here. And sometimes I think, oh, who gives a shit, more footsteps. But if you really break it down, that's actually a really unpleasant thing to have to experience. Like when I was listening to you tell that story, something about it, I just thought, yeah, that would be upsetting because there's no end to it. Like you imagine someone running at your door and you think, okay, it's turtle time. We have some shit about to go down.
Yeah.
Instead, it's just nothing. It's the retrograde ejaculation of ghosts.
I'm not sure that's where ectoplasm comes from, but I know what you mean.
But we also don't know it's not.
I think the thing about footsteps is you can tell the intention by the sound they make. And I think that's what gives them more agency in regards to that. Because at the end of the day, it's just a noise. But if you hear heavy, rapid footsteps, you know that person's angry, annoyed, murderous even. There's a real intention in that sound. And I think in the pantheon of paranormal sounds, footsteps give a lot away. Because often you'll hear shuffling or walking about, but when it's fast, rapid stomping, that sets the heebie-jeebies on you.
100%. I mean, even, I'm living in an apartment where I've got people above me, and sometimes whoever is upstairs will stomp angrily across, like run angrily, like, I don't know why the fuck they do it. It's a weird thing to do if you live in a 7th floor apartment, but they do sort of like an angry, stompy run across the apartment.
I've had enough of this shit.
Yeah, just training their football players up there or something. I don't know what's going on. But it always kind of puts my teeth on edge. And it's not like an irritation of loud noises. It's just this weird, I don't know, it's like it's just a visceral reaction to, as you say, this kind of like, it sounds like there's violent intent behind it. Or aggressive intent, I should say.
Have you tried throwing a firework through the letterbox? See what happens?
That's tomorrow. Funny enough, I was at TNT Market, which is a big Pan-Asian supermarket here. I was buying some stuff, and they had these huge fireworks. The tube was about as tall as, close to as tall as I am. And I just kind of imagine firing that through their letterbox. Basically a bazooka.
Yeah. In my experience, it's a 3-word solution. Firework, letterbox, sorted.
I love too, there's no note. They don't know who is doing this or why. They just all of a sudden their front door explodes. I've basically just done a terrorism.
Not stopping.
The official Paul Bestel solution. Do a terrorism.
Calms everything down. Done.
We all know preemptive strikes just cool things right off.
Do it in my experience.
There's more to that lore. The Lake Lenor Hospital. We live in the original hospital in Lake Lenor, Saskatchewan. We didn't think much of this house except that it was a big old house with a lot of history. We noticed weird happenings as soon as we moved in. We had no idea of past paranormal activities, so when my wife saw a young girl at the top of the stairway, she assumed it was our young daughter. She called her name out, but got no response, and the girl figure just vanished. My wife walked up the stairs and into my daughter's room and found her sound asleep. She told me about it, but I brushed it off, making fun of her. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. What a champion. Just a few days later, Paul, can you believe this? It started already.
Big Dad time.
Yeah. Hey there, Father of the Year. Just a few days later, she heard a girl's voice asking, "Do you remember me?" This was the last thing that happened for a few months until the day my own mother had an encounter. What makes this very interesting is how and when it happened. Let me give you a background about my mother. She's very religious and a complete disbeliever of paranormal activities. Well, that day she was sitting on our front porch playing a solitary game on the computer. It was mid-afternoon and obviously daylight. All of a sudden she heard a voice behind her saying, "Hi, Grandma." Now this would not be unusual, except none of the kids call her Grandma, but call her Nanny. Also, she was the only one home at the time. When she turned around, no one was there. One day a friend of mine drove by and told me that we had forgotten the light turned on in the attic. He said he could see it from the attic window. I went up to the attic, but the light wasn't on. I turned the light switch to the on position, but it wouldn't turn on. After testing, I realized the bulb was burnt out. I removed the bulb. A few days later, we were in the driveway and noticed a light on in the attic. I asked my wife if she had replaced the light bulb. She said no. When I got up to the attic, sure enough, there was no light bulb in the light socket. I will admit this was starting to get my attention. I also have to admit I was still not a believer. Things started to pick up from there. One day I was sitting down in our living room watching television with my daughter when we heard someone falling down the stairs and crashing into the door at the base. This door is in the living room. We both started to grin, and I actually said to my daughter, Jean-Marc had too much to drink again. Jean-Marc is my son. He lived with us at the time. Being a teenager, he sometimes would sneak out and have drinks with his friends. Our teenage son got drunk and fell down the stairs again. Classic. I hate this guy so much. When my daughter and I walked over and opened the door, no one was there. We proceeded upstairs and checked all 4 bedrooms, but found no one. On other numerous occasions, our little dog would start barking at the walls for no reason. We have one bedroom down on the main floor where my wife and I sleep. Early one evening, I wasn't feeling well. So while the rest of the family was sitting in the living room watching TV, I decided to go lay down. I wasn't laying down for more than 5 minutes when all of a sudden my pendulum light hanging from the ceiling started swinging violently, actually hitting the ceiling. I called out for the rest of the family to come and see this. They came and saw what was happening. It kept going for 2 minutes and then stopped. Now this was really starting to get my attention. After that day, things got really creepy. One day I decided to go down and change the furnace filter. The only light in the basement was bright, and being that there are no windows in the basement, it was quite dark. I asked my wife to shine a flashlight from the top of the stairs so I could walk down and change the light bulb. When I got down the stairs, I heard this horrible growling coming from the right of me. I bolted back upstairs. I asked my wife if she was trying to scare the shit out of me. She replied that she thought I was trying to scare her. From the beginning, it was voices and things moving, and that was kind of funny, but now I was getting worried. One night, I was sleeping by myself. Everyone else had gone to Regina for the night. I woke up from my sleep and saw a really freaky figure standing over me. It was luminescent, like a glow. It was not a human figure. The only way I could describe it was a large mosquito-type figure. The scariest thing I ever saw. I felt like a little child. I actually covered my head with my blankets for what felt like hours, but was only a few minutes. In the last 12 years, things have happened weekly. We will feel tugging on our sheets and blankets while in bed, someone walking upstairs even though no one is upstairs. One day, the wife and I were at the bar when this lady came over to us and asked us how we liked our house. We told her we liked it very much. She was the owner of the house before us. What she asked us next sent chills right to our bones. She asked us, "Have you met the little girl yet?" All right, Paul, I have so much to say about this because fuck this guy to death. If his behavior throughout the rest of the story was not enough of an indication, the fact he referred to his wife as the wife tells you pretty much everything you need to know. The guy is a walking Henny Youngman punchline.
Well, it could have been worse. Could have called her little lady.
Or the old ball and chain.
Oh, ball buster.
Old lady. A lot of folks in Revelstoke used to use that when I was a kid.
Biscuit. Oh, I love.
What word is this?
It's a colloquial. A bit of skirt, or your bit of skirt, means your partner.
Oh, okay.
Bit of trouser is the male equivalent.
Okay.
And you should never be friends with anyone who talks like that.
No. Because there's gonna be a really messy, yelly fight about 3/4 of the way into the party. Someone's gonna get hit, and you're gonna have to figure out exactly what you're gonna do to conduct yourself in that situation.
It'll be like the party in Boogie Nights where that bloke kills everyone.
yeah, exactly that. Exactly that.
Pampas grass in the front. Yeah, stay away from that house.
A lot of upside down pineapples and everything. Like, no, this is just trouble.
It's been a while since we've had a nominee for the Dickhead Dad Award, and he's certainly up there. He's got a good chance of getting the gold medal at the end of the year.
Woof.
Yeah, maybe that'll get his attention.
I just love all these things happen. And he's like, well, it was starting to get interesting. Like, I love how all the women in his life are telling him something's happening. And he just does not give a shit.
Shh. Shush your quiet little heads.
And frankly, like the growling in the basement, I mean, that's genuinely scary, but also I wanted whatever it was to just eat him.
Yeah, it's probably saying even the ghost thinks you're a dick.
Like they managed to conjure a mosquito man, which is possibly the worst thing I've ever heard, and it never read anywhere else. And they're like, what is the worst thing we can inflict on this douchebag? I know, a mosquito-sized human. Or sorry, nope, that's the other way around. A human-sized mosquito. That would not be very scary or very threatening.
Well, it's that, it's that old argument. Would you rather fight a horse-sized duck or 50 duck-sized horses?
Interesting. Do you have a take on this?
No, because I'd just go, fucking hell, look at that. That's weird, isn't it?
He died doing what he loved, going, fucking hell, that's weird, isn't it?
I'd be like, hey, I'm not bothered because I know most wild animals could fuck you up, And I'm not delusional enough to think I could be part of that 100 men gorilla conversation because I'm not a moron.
God, I don't know if there's an internet conversation I'm more tired of than the 100 men and the gorilla thing. Maybe the hot dogs, whether hot dogs are a sandwich thing. I'm pretty sick of that.
I'm tired of most internet conversations, I have to be honest.
That's fair.
I find them deeply tiring and it lowers my my spiritual ebbs.
Yeah, I was actually saying this the other day. I popped on Blue Sky briefly. I just don't enjoy it anymore. I don't enjoy being on the internet. It is so toxic and despairing. Like, I understand there are a lot of bad things happening in the world right now, and right now we have like unprecedented access to 1080p 4K videos of this shit going down quite often live. But I don't think subjecting yourself to it over and over accomplishes anything other than like just destroying you emotionally. And it's kind of hard to go on there and say, hey, I got a new episode of the show out when every other post is something truly dire. But
sometimes we should be the bright light in the darkness.
I suppose so. I don't know. I mean, I periodically like to go in there and bitch about whatever it is happening in my life, So, like, for example, a couple of years ago, I had to take this class at NY, or I didn't have to. I was asked to sit in a class at NYU.
I was going to say, that made it sound like it was some kind of court decision there.
my court-mandated corporate finance class. Brad, ever since you ran Enron into the ground, we think you have to...
Ever since your 3-week job experience at Lehman Brothers.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. 2000 is about June 2008, just, The housing market, I told everyone, will always continue to grow.
What toxic mortgage bubble?
Actually, the funny thing is, if I had done that, I would never have been sentenced to do anything. I would have gotten a golden parachute. But anyways... So I took this, I was this corporate finance professor at NYU. I know him through a series of things. And he needed 2 guys to be ringers in his class because admission was down during COVID for Zoom classes. And he said, I need 2 people in there who know it, basically can kind of kickstart conversation. If nothing's happening, I need 2 guys who can just kind of go, oh, this thing, and then just keep things moving. So he actually paid for our tuition to take this class. He said, you just have to come in, you have to participate. That's all I ask. And so I sat in on this class. Ever since then, I've been using my NYU login to get access to JSTOR, the online this document repository, because they didn't kill my login and it still worked. And I would also use it to access Canopy, the free streaming platform. And just today, and I was bitching about this on Blue Sky, which is why I mentioned it. This is one of the few things I do post on there. Today I was like, yep, they finally canned it. I went to go log in and they're like, no, you took one course here 4 years ago. Stop trying to use this to get free stuff, you son of a bitch.
Yeah. Is this like the time I got a juvenile community service order and had to go and play football for the police team for a year and they won the league and so they cancelled my detention early?
Is this a real thing that happened?
Yes.
Okay, now obviously this has nothing to do with ghosts, but tell me the story.
It was all the hangover of it was all intertwined with that court case where I ended up winning compensation off them for wrongful arrest and falsifying statements. But as part of it, there was another incident, and I got like a 32-hour detention order to stop me causing havoc on a Saturday afternoon, which I wasn't doing anyway, and we hadn't done it. It was all a stitch up. But part of it, I had to come all the way over to Sheffield, and when we started doing this sort of, you'd do like an hour woodworking and art and bollocks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was sat with 25 young men who didn't know which end of a pencil worked, and so that was quite challenging. But then we started playing football, and at the end of the first session, the community officer said, we've got a couple of players short in the police team. Would you be up for doing that instead? And I said, well, yeah. And he went, all right then. Right, we'll sort you out. And after that, I just played for them for the rest of the season, and I scored 23 goals in 11 games, and they won the league. And I had 8 hours left to do it, and they cancelled it as a reward. And then a year later, I got $5,000 compensation for it all.
So you were technically a professional footballer. You were paid to play football, more or less.
Yeah, for that bit, yeah. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, watching people trying to kill me every week was a right laugh.
Oh, of course, because you're playing other cops.
Well, you're playing other people who hate cops.
Oh, okay. Oh, yikes.
Yeah, right laugh. So I didn't like anybody I was playing with or against.
So they didn't really let you off early. They made you go basically do the running man.
Yeah. Well, luckily I was very fat. I was very fast.
Oh, okay.
And I was quite nimble in those days. I was quite good at jumping up out of fat Brian coming flying in, trying to break both my legs with one tackle. I only got my nose broke once.
Jesus.
And that was just a elbow in face. Have some of that, you little shit.
You got framed by the cops, and then you got press ganged into service for them and beat up for your trouble.
Yeah. Well, I had last laugh. I got a hat-trick that game with a broken nose, so, fuck you.
And you got 5,000 of their pounds.
Eventually, yes. And I was able to rub it in them every time they tried to be clever about it.
All right, just before we move on to the next story, I have a bonus that I was going to read on the first one. I didn't get to it. Oh. So this is called Bleeding, and it's from the town, one of my favorite towns of all time, the town of Moose Jaw.
Brilliant name.
Yes. Yeah, it is. It is oddly larger than Prince Albert, as it is the fourth largest city in Saskatchewan with a population of 33,000 people.
You would expect a Moose Jaw to be larger than a Prince Albert, though, wouldn't you?
Depends on the person, but let's not judge.
Do carry on, I'm sorry.
Yes. So, Bleeding. So they said, one day dinner was late. It was about 10 p.m. That is very late. I went for my regular walk. The streets were empty with no signs of any life. I thought it was strangely deserted. I thought I heard someone whispering behind me, so I spun around. No one was there. As I turned back, there was a little girl about 5 or 6 standing about a block away from me. I could hear her sobbing and mumbling to herself from where I was standing. I started to walk towards her. I heard her saying she was lost and scared. I called to her to see if she wanted to use my cell phone to call family, but she just stared at her feet. I got closer, and I could see she was bleeding from the head, and the blood was running down her neck. I started to call 911, but when I looked up, she was gone. And it's just a little thing, but that is very similar to one of the stories in Strange from south of Revelstoke.
But there are lots of haunted little girls wandering around Saskatchewan. Maybe they've all gone looking for the Turtle Lake Monster and met their end. Tell
me about the Turtle Lake Monster.
It's the only lake monster in Saskatchewan.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's probably one of the lesser known ones in comparison to say Ogopogo and Memphrey. Even though Memphrey seems to be a closely guarded secret unless you're really into lake monsters, as it's a very odd situation going on at Lake Memphrey. But enough of that. So it's a weird 10-foot looking leathery creature that people have described as looking similarly to a giant turtle or some kind of dinosaur. And so it is quite strange because a couple of years ago, a giant sturgeon was caught there, which surprised everybody because obviously sturgeons aren't supposed to be there. And so nobody knows where the sturgeon came from. It was massive. I think it was 9 foot long. They reckon it was 110 years old, this sturgeon.
Jesus Christ.
So essentially it was armour-plated like a battleship. Took 2 hours to land, and they set it free after they caught it. And so people said, oh, well, that must be it. But people have said, well, it didn't look like a sturgeon. I know what a sturgeon looks like, and it didn't look like a sturgeon. So it's still ongoing. I think the last sighting there was a couple of years ago. Ironically, though, one of the best preserved Elasmosaurus skeletons recovered in Canada was found near there. Is it Petex in Saskatchewan? Petex? Place I can't remember off the top of my head, about 25, 30 years ago, something like that.
Not sure. Let's find out.
And obviously they were incredible monsters of the sea in their time, millions of years ago. So who knows? But yes, it's one of the lesser lesser mentioned members of the Canadian lake monster fraternity.
So before we move on, tell me about Memphrey, because I'm actually not familiar with that. I'm familiar with Ogopogo. I'm familiar with Caddy, with, the fetus lake monster, but I don't know Memphrey.
Well, Memphrey is another one. It's got a giant alleged serpentine creature in there that's been seen going all the way back to the First Nations. However, one particular researcher has essentially blockaded all sightings and reports and won't publish them, and nobody knows why.
That's fucking bizarre.
Yeah, it's a very strange situation. So, like I say, I only know about it because I know people that have looked into it, and they run into this brick wall. She gets people to sign non-disclosure agreements so they can't share their stories and stuff. It's very weird. It's like she's trying to stop it happening.
That is fascinating. It always reminds me, again, I talk about this a lot on this show, but that sea monster show I saw a long time ago, where there was the one segment which has been trimmed out from future broadcast versions, where the locals they talk to these people about their local sea monster, and no one wants to talk about it.
I always think Ogopogo, I think, is probably one of the best ones, I think, out there for me. I've seen footage, and there's clearly something there. I don't know what it is, but it's fucking big. The missing half. The best thing about this province is the amount of abandoned farms, towns and settlements that are scattered through the unused land. A city is larger than 30,000 population, and a town is anything from 5,000 to 25,000. And settlements? They can be anything from 2 people to 1,000 people. Settlements are usually just a term for a place on the map that's nothing more than homes and a gas station. They're usually just pit stops for people on the way down the Trans-Canada Highway. Some settlements are really off the path, with roads leading to a ghost town with a few stragglers still residing there. I think the settlement my friend lives in only has a few people, but it definitely used to have a bigger population. It's cheap to live there and peaceful, and a lot of people seem to enjoy that here. Earlier tonight, I drove to a small settlement about 20 minutes outside the city to pick up a friend from her trailer. I was sitting in my vehicle in front of her home waiting for her to arrive. I had my brights on, as the settlement sits mostly in the dark, and the roads leading down to it are quite dark. The settlement only houses a few people, so I wasn't concerned about my headlights being a problem. Whilst I was sitting there, having a smoke, I saw some kind of shadow moving about just on the edge of where my headlights were shining. At first I assumed it must have been a neighbour wandering in the snow, but I soon realised that this wasn't the case. I could tell that it had stopped as I could see it standing just outside the beam of light. It was the size of a young child, maybe 8 or 9, and seemed to be wearing all black. After standing there for a minute or so, it began to limp away. That's the best way to describe it. It sort of waltzed awkwardly across the road and stopped again, but this time illuminated by my headlights. It had very few noticeable features, but the thing that absolutely freaked me out was its lack of an arm. Where its right arm and shoulder should have been, there was nothing. It looked as though someone had cut from the end of its neck down to its waist. Half the fucking torso was missing. It seemed to lean awkwardly on the missing side, giving it the illusion of hunching over. The legs were very thin and almost looked curved or warped. I know it wasn't turned at a weird angle, making it look that way as it was facing my vehicle head-on. I stared at it, trying to make sense of its body structure, and before I could get out of my car, it waddled out of sight towards the train tracks in the field behind the trailers, where a train was currently passing by. My friend came out to the car and I just blurted out what had happened, but before I could finish she asked me if it was missing an arm. I freaked out and said yes, somehow glad I wasn't losing my mind. She said that her son, who was 7, had been claiming to see the same thing at night. She'd figured it was just being difficult as he's autistic. She was so scared by what I said that she'd decided to stay home that night and be with him. I've no idea what the fuck I saw, but whatever it was, I know I wasn't the only one seeing it. I think the thing that freaked me out the most was the fact that its breath wasn't frosted. It's very cold out here, and you can see your breath very easily. This thing didn't blow a single puff of frosted air. It was almost as if it wasn't breathing at all, and it didn't leave foot trails in the snow. I'm usually very sceptical, but I can honestly say I've no explanation for what I saw that night. I've never seen anything like it. It was seriously nightmare fuel. Quite clear that happens. It seems to be a child that's had an unfortunate mishap on the rail line.
Oh, that's what you think, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I mean, that could very well be.
That would be the only plausible explanation, I suggest, for an injury of that sort, sadly.
I got to say, there's a real dereliction of duty as far as safety is concerned if you're getting fucked up by a train on the prairies, because you can see those things coming for about 6 days. Trains in Canada do not move very fast. And as my grandfather, who grew up in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, used to like to say, the entire province is flat as piss on a plate.
We call that Cambridgeshire.
Okay, well, there you go.
Lincolnshire's quite flat as well.
I guarantee you it's not Saskatchewan flat. We went there together, he and I, when I was 20, maybe 19. It was 19. We went together. We took the Greyhound because I couldn't drive. I didn't have a driver's license, and he was quite elderly at that point. It was not realistic for him to make the drive himself. But we went to his hometown. This was Saskatoon, and the prairies are flat. It is like Alberta's flat too once you get past the Rockies, but then you get out to like you cross the border at Alsask, which is the name of the little gas station basically where you cross the provinces, and then from there you can see the Welcome to Manitoba sign in the distance several days drive away. Again, Grandpa used to say whenever their dog Dave went missing, you could just step on the porch and you're like, oh, there he is. Just run after him for a day and you'll catch him.
Oh, he's up near where those hairy people live.
Yeah, exactly. Or Bill. Sorry, Bill was the dog's name. The dog's name was Bill.
Bill.
Yeah, he apparently used to like to lay on the streetcar tracks. And so they would get someone would be sent to their house because they'd say, you have to come get Bill. He's sleeping on the tracks and the trolley cannot move. And they would the trolley would be, guy would be honking his horn and Bill would just be snoozing, absolutely refusing to do anything.
Good for Bill.
Yes, good for Bill indeed. Actually, this seems like a good time to talk about an aspect of Saskatchewan that's currently happening that you weren't familiar with. And we're going to be very careful because these people actually scare the shit out of me. But in Richmond, Saskatchewan, there is a compound. It's a former school. It is now occupied by a cult. And that cult is led by a woman named Romana Didulo, who calls herself the Queen of Canada. And Didulo came to prominence during the pandemic as part of QAnon. She was one of these online influencers pushing this bullshit that was QAnon. And of course, QAnon is absolutely bullshit if you haven't figured it out already. It's a fascinating story. There are a number of books about QAnon. You can find, the one I read was called Into the Storm, I think. I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head, but if you're that curious, email me, I'll tell you. But it was a cult. It warped the minds of a lot of people, primarily through things like Facebook. Just the groups proliferated. It drove people nuts. It was basically, if you're not familiar with this somehow, God, how I envy you. But anyways, this Romana Didulo, she started grifting off of this and claimed that she would, even though she was from, I think, the Philippines, that she was somehow the rightful Queen of Canada, and that you were...
Big fan of Idi Amin, is she?
Apparently so. But she got famous telling people, well, no, like kind of like Freeman on the land shit. You don't have to pay your taxes. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to have driver's licenses. You don't have to have license plates on your cars. You don't have to pay your bills because, this is all the system and the system is corrupt and you don't actually, you can opt out of it.
Yeah, we have dickheads like that who quote the Magna Carta, even though it's not been on the legislation books for about 800 years.
Yeah, exactly. But her group of merry psychopaths, they took over essentially the town of Richmond. They moved into this town And at least as recently as they're still there, actually. I looked it up. They're still in Richmond, but apparently they have dialed back their public presence because she understands, or it has been speculated, she understands it's easier for her to stay under the radar and just keep collecting money from people, from like gullible people, instead of trying to make waves. Because she was talking about assassinating public figures, like, again, installing her as the rightful Queen of Canada. And the people in this town, like, it's actually really scary. They were frightened. These people were unhinged. And again, they took over, they had like a mobile command center sort of thing, but then they set up in this school, which they were invited to by some idiot. And they were very vocal in town, very present. They would follow local, politicians. They would follow and kind of like, they wouldn't threaten them. But if you follow someone around enough, you don't have to threaten them. They would do the same to reporters, anyone who tried to sort of fairly talk about what it was they were doing. And they were a real problem, but no one could seemingly do anything about it. And there are different opinions as to why. I think a lot of it is just sort of institutional inertia. But there was real concern these people were going to try and take over the town through force, because they had a lot of quite unnerving rhetoric. But again, it seems like they've dialed that back now. So they're still there. They're still in this school in Richmond, Saskatchewan. This crazy ass woman who thinks she is, in fact, the rightful ruler of Canada. It's a bizarre insight into an online cult that has had very, very real world consequences.
Where's Godzilla when you need him?
Telling you.
As I said earlier, rocket, letterbox, sorted.
I think it's actually like a measure of how much these people have frightened the folks in this town that no one's done that. Like that no one has decided to either A, call Godzilla, or B, have a mailbox surprise.
How peculiar. I don't know. I suppose is it easier to form a cult these days than it's ever been?
I think so. I think it's especially easier to disseminate your messaging. Especially like for example, this woman, I have to, I hate having to worry about what I say because you never know what fucking YouTube is going to think you're actually advocating. But they are anti-vax to the point of advocating violence against people who administer vaccines to kids. You should shoot these people in the head is some of their rhetoric. It's frightening shit.
So have they had all their vaccines removed from their bodies then? I've heard if you drink 15 litres of bleach, it tends to cure it.
We're not suggesting you drink 15 litres of bleach, but if you happen to be in this particular cult...
Domestos is a good one. Quite flavourful.
But yeah, again, like look up the Queen of QAnon, Queen of Canada, guys, if you want to learn more about this. I'm only just scratching the surface because it's not really the point of the show. And yeah, to your question, I think it's easier than ever because I think people get so locked into their computers. They get so locked into their groups. I mean, Behind the Bastards did a series of episodes on the Zizians, and that started as a guy writing Harry Potter fan fiction and ended in actual murder. Like it's crazy shit, and it's all these nerds getting bound up in these like logical questions in their little forums, and they never expand out into the real world, and consequently they never have to have someone go, "What the fuck are you talking about? Go touch grass."
Oh, how peculiar.
Yeah, no, it's a weird one. Certainly not the only sort of weird cult I've heard of in Canada, but it is probably, I think, the most alarming, just because of it. Again, QAnon is a very, very dangerous thing because it warped so many people's minds. It's kind of staggering, actually, how many people bought into QAnon and in some cases completely severed their relationships with their families. Like that's something that in the pieces I've read about QAnon and the books I've read, just is shocking, is how many people it pulled them away from their families to the point where they cut off connection because they will not understand. Like they think their family are actively working against them. They're evil.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's a whole different level of internet infused psychosis.
Yeah, that's really it. No, it is scary, scary stuff. But I tell you what's not scary, Paul, and that is these ads.
Have you thought about joining a cult? Then don't.
Behind the door. I have a story about my great-grandparents' acreage in the valley near the nutrient mine of Rocanville. Back in 2011, me, my mother, and sister moved away from BC to live on their acreage a couple of years after they'd passed. We had a good standing relationship with them while they were alive. We would drive all the way from the west coast just to visit them for a week or two. That is a long goddamn drive. Some weeks after we'd moved in, we began to see and hear unexplainable footsteps, silhouettes, and full-on apparitions, in my sister's case. I feel like I should explain the layout. The house itself is rectangular in shape, with a front door, but everyone uses the side door as it faces the parking lot/garage. Once inside the side door, there's a kitchen to the left, a door straight ahead leads to the basement, and to the right is the laundry room. Going through the kitchen, you will pass the dining room, then a mudroom/hall for the front door, and straight from there is the living room. To the right of the mudroom is another hall with bedrooms on each end, one in the middle as well as a bathroom. My sister stayed at one end, my mother in the other, and I was in the middle. So now that I have that out of the way, on with the experiences. The first thing I saw with my own eyes was when I was sitting in a lazy-boy in the living room watching TV. I noticed a vehicle passing on the road, and at the same time there, in the kitchen, a shadow flew from the basement door area to the kitchen window. I couldn't see it for very long, like it seemed like it disappeared once it got to the window, and this continued happening every time a vehicle drove by. We concluded it was because these vehicles belonged to the only people that lived down the road, which were really good friends for a big portion of their lives. My mother began to see the same thing every time a vehicle had passed, and was the one to connect the dots as to why it was happening. My other main experience with the house was when I was in my room, waking up, drinking coffee. As I was sitting there sipping, I heard what sounded like someone sprinting down the hall from my sister's room to my mother's room. So from one end of the hall to the other. Of course, it scared the shit out of me, and it sometimes happened twice a morning. I didn't hear anyone running back the other way, and I knew nobody else would be awake at that time because they don't have to be up. This happened for the entirety of our stay there, and it happened at precisely 5 to 7 a.m., and every time it was exactly the same 6 strides. Putting my own rationale aside, I asked my sister why she was running down the hall so early. She said no, it wasn't her, but she also didn't hear the footsteps herself. I asked Mom, but she was always too tired from work to be up that early. She would also not run that fast in the house unless it was an emergency. I'm thinking this experience is residual, as it cannot be interacted with because its characteristics are true to residual phenomenon. I actually did some testing. That's how I reached this conclusion. The footsteps would not initiate if I were sitting there waiting for it to happen. In fact, I cracked my door one morning to maybe get a glimpse of whatever it was. Unfortunately, I gave in to my fear of the unknown and shut my door. Subsequently, the footsteps happened soon after. My sister's experiences were more visual. As she opened the door, she would see Great-Grandma standing just behind the door, as if she didn't want to be seen. This only happened once in her recollection, but that would have sent shivers down my spine. She also remembers one day coming home from school to a pair of bare feet walking down the basement stairs. I always had a feeling something might show up in the bathroom mirror, as cliché as that sounds, so I asked my grandparents to try not to scare us, but I loved them, and I was glad they were still lingering around us. I felt a sense of comfort I'd never felt before. The house still stands. We had to move out because of some inter-family disputes with bills not being fairly shared between my grandma and her brother. We only really got to stay there about a year and a half, and I do miss the acreage. If I were ever to have the money, I would buy it back in a heartbeat. And I gotta say, Paul, I actually picked this one because I thought the image of the grandmother standing just partially hidden by the door was the least comforting thing I have ever heard. Like, I told you earlier, I had a swell of emotion at the thought of losing my grandfather those 20 years ago. But if he were to appear behind my fucking bedroom door like Michael Myers, I would be a lot less enthused.
Yeah, I don't think peeping ghosts are comforting in the slightest. I don't care who it is.
No. In fact, you know what it reminded me of? Is I don't really like the movie Communion with Christopher Walken. I haven't seen it recently, but I remember not really caring for it. However, the scene where he's laying in bed and he's having one of his visions and he says, "I know you're there." And one of the grays comes out from behind the door. That is probably one of the top 10 most chilling moments I've ever seen in a movie. And that's what this reminds me of.
Yeah. It's like the alien walking across the garden in Signs at the kid's birthday party.
Yep. Or the nurse scene in Exorcist 3. What is Whitley doing these days? Speaking of Whitley.
Whitley, he's still podcasting. He's still writing.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
Still not answering my emails.
You got close for a while there, right?
Yeah, you know, I'm ever the optimist. He's a busy man.
That's fair. That's fair. You got to. It's like when you were talking to Paul Sinclair on the most recent show. Like that's another guy who's just always on the go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, it's the first time he's been on for 2 years. I mean, we speak fairly regularly, but you know, he's chock-a-block, bless him.
There's that great moment when he's explaining to you how early he gets up, and he calls his wife in, and she exactly says what he had just said. He's like, I paid her to say that.
Yeah, good old Mary, bless her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might be nipping out over there next couple of months, so see what happens.
Oh, very cool. Well, he had some really interesting stories of people who experienced shit when they came out with him. Like there was the one with a red light that just came up out of the ground.
Mm. Yeah, they had one the other week where somebody saw a great big blue sort of fluorescent triangle appear.
Oh my God.
Out of the ground and just go up into the air.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a strange place. I mean, it is a very odd place around there because it's smack on the cross. It literally, if you don't know where you are, you could fall off the edge of a cliff.
Really?
Into the sea. Yeah, it's smack on the North Sea.
Oh, okay.
And it's basically sheer drops.
Jesus Christ, that's terrifying.
Where we were at the Bempton, it's an RSPB reserve. So there's thousands and thousands of birds there. And so you're on a viewing platform that essentially sticks out in above the cliffs and everywhere around there. And he was saying it's amazing. You can see when he's got the infrared and stuff, you can see foxes coming down the cliffs to get the birds.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I would love to get out there someday. I desperately want to see something like that. Like, again, I've had my shadow people encounters back in the day, but I would love to see like a blue triangle come out of the ground.
Absolutely. I suppose it's anything like that. I mean, I've been once and not seen anything, but it was just nice to have 2 or 3 hours out there just having a look and using his kit and being able to see what they can see and him explaining everything it wasn't, which I think was very important.
Oh, that's one of the many things I appreciate about him is he doesn't, like we've said before, he doesn't need to make shit up. He will happily help you deconstruct what you've seen because he knows that there is something real to be seen. Yeah.
And he gets a lot of people telling him shit that, you know.
Oh, I bet.
He's just like, nah. No.
I'm not buying that shit.
Yeah. It's like the whole Wolflands things. People saying, oh, so you're saying it's Dogman? And he's like, no, I don't know what it is. I don't know what these people are saying.
I don't know if that's available in Canada yet, Wolflands, because I really want to see that. It's so rare you find a paranormal documentary that's actually good.
Yeah. No, it was brilliant. It's brilliant. It's got some very, very scary encounters. The mountain biker's my favourite one.
Oh, okay.
Where he's just driving through the woods and he realises that there's something inside the tree line following him.
Oof.
And it's keeping pace with him all the way. And he's belting down there 25, 30 mile an hour. And it's keeping up with him, no problem.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, it's a weird place. There's lots of little weird, strange little places all around that, if you know where to look. Like the Rudston Monolith and stuff like that. You have to think, well, why did those people drag that stone 30 miles to put it there? Why did they put it there? Because the stone the Rudston Monolith's made out of, I think, is from Whitby. And that's been there 5,000 years. It's been there as long as the pyramids. So why did they drag that to Rudston to put it in the ground? Why did the Romans build a cemetery next to it? Why did the Christians build a church next to it? What is the power of that place? It's a tiny village on the way to Bridlington.
I was listening to a show the other day. I won't say the name in case you think they're full of shit. But they were talking about alternative explanations for, or some stuff that had to do with the pyramids. You know, maybe not alternative explanations for the pyramids, but the idea that they're not tombs. They were, in fact, they had some other purpose. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think we know.
Oh, okay.
I think the thing with people is they're always desperate for an explanation for something they don't understand. And, I mean, there's not much the pyramids haven't been claimed to be, is there? Really?
No, that's true.
I think it's one of those things. We, as with anything, we often believe that we understand history and archaeology, but we know next to fucking nothing. You know, as I've mentioned before, that discovery of the village, the city in South America last year, it's completely turned the whole history of South America on its head now. Whereas before they just thought they were all hunter-gatherers just eking out existence, we now know that their civilization skills predate anything else on the continent. And that's what we've just discovered. We've only just discovered that. We haven't been looking at stuff properly for thousands of years. We've only really been doing archaeology for, 100, 150 years. We only discovered dinosaurs less than 200 years ago.
That always blows my mind.
These are blinks of eyes in the history of the universe, right? The amount of time that we've been searching for knowledge it's insignificant when you look at the history of the age of the Earth. It's irrelevant what we've done in the last 200 years. We know nothing. What we do, we know a lot about very little, is what we know. And as the sooner we understand that doesn't mean that the pyramids are fucking rockets or, alien signposts or interplanetary batteries or
of course, yeah.
The stuff that I've had to listen to over the years, it makes my head hurt even trying to think about some of the shit. Yeah, and the Sahara's a strange place. There could be more out there, and there's other sites all around Africa like that. There's an incredible series, I think is it in Ethiopia, that people very rarely speak about, and that's as jaw-dropping. But because it's in Ethiopia, it's not classed as the friendly tourist areas. There's incredible things out there. We can only imagine when we look at what the like people say, we don't know how they built them. Well, we don't know very little about, we know a lot, but we know very little about the pyramids. This perception that people from 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago were idiots, it infuriates me. It really does. The Egyptians managed to irrigate the fucking Sahara by diverting the Nile, right? That's not, Ramesses just pissing about with a few sticks, going, look, I've made a garden. Wow. These are concerted, educational, scientific undertakings. This perception that people were stupid, I think, is based on European history. And we apply that to everywhere else. And we go, well, we weren't doing anything interested in 500 BC other than trying not to be invaded by Romans. Therefore, everybody else in the world must be idiots. But we clearly know that that's not true. There's so many incredible sites. You look at some of the sites out in the Far East, in Asia, in places like Thailand and Vietnam. Clearly, there were cultures. I mean, it's like a prime example of this. How do people think people got to fucking Fiji? How did they get there? Right, because there are people out there who just don't think that the Pacific nations were intelligent. Well, they clearly were, because they managed to get to near enough every fucking major island in the whole sea. Well, how did they get there? It's like people say, how did people get to Australia? Right, it's the arse end of the world. It's the last part next to Antarctica, right? And I remember somebody saying, well, Papua New Guinea's not that far. You can't fucking swim there, pal.
It's like the dog running away. You just look. No, I see it. Yeah.
You look at Hawaii. How did people get to Hawaii? How did people get to Fiji? How did people get to Japan? Right? Pangaea didn't happen a million years ago. Everybody stood about on bits of land, and then all of a sudden Pangaea went, hang on, fuck this. And we all set off at like 20 miles an hour on bits of rock around the world.
It's like when I walk into a party and everyone just fucks off.
That didn't happen. Pangaea split, I don't know, what was it? 150 million years ago? I can't remember now. But the lack of credit given to the Pacific Islanders, it still baffles me in 2025. How did those people get to those places? They must have known some of the Pacific Ocean people understood by looking at the tide how close they were to land by the way water moved. How do you know that unless you're intelligent?
Aliens, Paul. It's always fucking aliens with these people.
Because exactly. The easiest thing is, people walked from Russia into North America. Did they? What, they walked through Alaska? What, in the middle of winter, did they? Wearing a pair of furry pants. They walk to Alaska, all the way down Canada in the winter during the Ice Age.
I've seen Clan of the Cave Bear. I know what's up.
But every island, near enough, every major body of land in the Pacific Ocean has been populated for thousands of years. How did those people get there if they didn't understand boat building, navigation, the stars, the sea, how to survive? And these were obviously decisions made, because I know this might come as a shock to some people, but it usually takes a man and a woman to populate somewhere. And usually you need more than one couple to do it properly, otherwise you get inbreeding.
So how does that... I don't understand. Explain.
So
my wife keeps telling me she's going to explain this to me one day, but I don't know.
So you've got to straight away you understand that these were complex decisions made by people to go somewhere and populate it. The question is, why? And that's the thing, you know, we're talking, I don't know, what is it, 15, 20, 30,000 years ago? And yet we base our history on the fact that we weren't doing it, so nobody else in the world could do that. Clearly the Pacific Islanders were miles ahead of everybody else at that particular time. Look at Easter Island. Why is Easter Island there? What's all that about? It's brilliant, isn't it? It's fascinating.
We have this issue with perception where we can only... I would say it's not even an issue of perception. I would say it's a failure of imagination, because we can only understand things through the lens of what's around us. It is difficult to put ourselves in a different situation and imagine things unfolding another way. And I say this because, as an example, the simulation theory, this idea that we are running in a computer program, because that is the closest analog anyone has for reality. It's the dumbest thing, because they use the computer because it's the thing that most closely resembles what we see as reality, not that we've created a computer to simulate reality as we understand it.
So, yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, these are things that people don't usually talk about. I find things like that I could be lost in for days just reading about those kind of things out in the Pacific. It's the most underrated achievement of human civilization.
I couldn't agree more. And with that sterling agreement, we're going to take a quick break for some ads. All right. So for our last segment, we're just going to do some little bites. These are sort of little bits of stories that we found online. Some of them, or most of them actually, are centered around Regina, which is the capital of Saskatchewan. And the other thing that I forgot to mention when we were talking about the last story, the person started with something that is not going to make much sense if you don't know Saskatchewan, which is they refer to the Nutrien mine. And Nutrien is a company, and they own a number of potash mines in Saskatchewan. I think they own 6 different potash mines. So that is what a Nutrien mine is. I realize that is, again, not going to make much sense. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, and I just got distracted, Saskatchewan has over 100 ghost towns, and that is something the person mentions in that story. And if you can, look up, if you like that kind of thing, if you guys like urbex, look up some of the ghost towns in Saskatchewan. I think like Uranium is one of them, and it's truly just an incredible number of buildings just left. Because Saskatchewan has always been a series of, very small rural towns built kind of around farming. It's just really compelling shit. And there is a book which is not cheap, I'm sad to say. It's called Blowing in the Wind, Ghost Towns on the Saskatchewan Grid. And it came out in 2022. It says, driving over 10,000 kilometers on the grid roads of Saskatchewan in search of the 137 listed ghost towns, the author has presented images of many of the uninhabited settlements and villages throughout Saskatchewan. So this is by Terry Frank Brown. And again, you can get it on Amazon. I think it is actually, it's independently published. So I believe it's only available on Amazon. It is, like I said, it's about $55 Canadian for a copy. But if you want a one-of-a-kind photo essay helping you understand or the scope of ghost towns in Saskatchewan, it's worth checking out. But can you imagine 137 ghost towns? That's fucking nuts.
I mean, I can think of a couple off the top of my head, but I can't think of many more than that. I'm sure there is, but they're not. No, yeah, weird.
I'm actually surprised that England has any ghost towns. I wouldn't think you guys have the space.
We've got Warren Percy, which is where we found the vampire graves, and then there's one down south somewhere that was cleared for the army to blow the neighbouring area up, testing things during the Second World War, and they never let anybody go back.
Oh shit! Okay, interesting.
There was a story the other was either last year or the year before that I think the last resident who was born there died. I think he was 100 and something, and he had to get special permission to be buried in the graveyard there because the graveyard's still there.
No kidding.
And they allowed it, obviously.
I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, which was an unusual decision from the Conservative government that have shit on Britain for 14 years, that they would actually do something sensible for once.
Well, it's because he was dying.
Well, the government, yes, they were.
Well, that too. I was thinking this guy. Like, it's a poor person. He's removing himself from the population. So
let's look at his voting record.
God. It's like they just take fucking lessons from Scrooge. All right. So, again, we got a series of just little shorts that Paul and I are going to read off here and just talk about a little bit. It's again, just tiny stuff, but I thought it's fun to get it in there because sometimes it's just interesting stuff that you can't necessarily fit into a first-person narrative. So first up is a house on Coronation Avenue. Again, this is in Regina. So they say the water faucets in this house would turn on in the night and be running in the morning when we woke up. This would happen once or twice a month. Laundry in the laundry baskets would be strewn about the room. Once they heard it happening, but they didn't actually see any laundry move. They had 3 dogs, and each one would growl at the same corner of the basement where the bar was for no reason. I got to tell you, if any one of these things happened in my fucking house, I would be seriously looking at living somewhere else.
Come on, let's go.
Yeah. Oh, yet another dog is barking at yet the same corner of the... Nope, it's off we go to Motel 6.
There must be an invisible mouse there.
Yeah. They saw the reflection of someone in stereo equipment. It looked like they were standing over them when they were laying on the couch. Apparently, their father claimed to see shadow people walking in the hallway, turning the lights on and off, and opening the faucets. This person only ever saw the lights turning on and off twice. And in 97, their father died in the master bedroom. And they like to think they've moved out, but they like to think that he is one of the spirits left behind in the house, which is actually kind of a weird, fucked up thing to think. But there you have it.
So this next one's called Steps. I used to do a mobile security patrol for Sask Property Management Corporation. Used to do weekends and overnights. And there's a building next to the tower on 23 Block Albert on the west side that I think that used to be an old Sask power building. We always used to get the motion alarms going off in there. You'd walk in the front door and it would sound like someone was going up the stairs in a hurry. Also, there would be a lot of motion in that, and an old empty house on College Avenue, which is on the south side between Broad and Halifax. I went on to work at the school board, and the old Connaught School was definitely haunted by something. I'd be alone in there from sort of 9 p.m. till 11 at night, and always got uncomfortable when I was shutting the lights off. It had a round gym that was connected to the school by a boot room hallway, and it always felt like someone was watching from the stairs whilst I armed the school. You'd also hear weird steps in there on the stairs sometimes.
Actually, that reminds me, there was something, speaking of security and steps, there's something I was going to tell you. So I was talking to Nick yesterday, and she works, I won't say where she works, but where she works, they have panic alarms at the individual desks because sometimes they have violent clients they have to deal with. And she got to work, and apparently the panic alarm in her office went off at about 5 a.m. There was no one in the building, and the line appears intact. There's no reason why it would have been triggered, but it went off, and they thought, well, that's strange, but okay. Then later in the morning, once everyone was at the office, the lights started flickering in the office. And now, of course, it's a government office. Sometimes things don't work necessarily the way they should, but it's never done this before, and it seemed to be happening in a very particular pattern. Once that stopped, now again, these buildings they're closed. There's no airflow. It's one of the major flaws of these government buildings. There's no fucking airflow. A cold, ice cold breeze whipped through the main office. A number of the women working there remarked on it. They have absolutely no idea. But what's interesting is they're doing some major renovations in and around the office. And there is a spirit there that I've talked to some of the people who work there, that it seems to peek out at them from around corners. We kind of call it just the peeker. It seems almost like childlike, but they don't know for sure. But it's like something small is peeking out at them and then goes back. So we were kind of discussing, like, maybe it's pissed off at these renovations.
It's the usual sure sign of that. It's a classic cliche in British hauntings, that renovations.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Again, there's been a handful of things at the office, but that was like, in the last little while, there's been a handful of things, but that especially seemed like very, very significant.
Yeah, I remember my Usborne's Book of Ghosts that I had as a child, and I was incredibly overexcited to get hold of a re-released copy as a middle-aged man. And that had a wonderful section.
I remember, yeah.
That had a wonderful section in it explaining why ghosts walk through walls, and that was explaining about renovations and the little map showing where the house was and why the ghost walks through the walls now. And that's always stuck with me. I remembered that all my life until I got that book again.
This one's from Hafford. And it says, in 2003, we lived in a big creepy house right next to the RCMP station and left of a large empty lot. One summer evening, my sister and I were sitting on the patio when, from the direction of the empty lot, an all-white phantom ran past our eyes towards the direction of the RCMP office. Couldn't have been more than 2 seconds, and I've never seen anything like that again.
I'm trying to think. There is a famous phantom jogger somewhere in the States, isn't there?
This Jim Fix, jogging to eternity, damned forever.
I'm trying to remember where it is. There's a town in America that considers itself to be the home of Halloween, and I always forget what it's called. And I think the Phantom Jogger's there.
I don't know. I've actually never heard that.
I was surprised when I came across that fact, because I thought, I've never heard of this place. How can it be the home of Halloween? I've never heard of it.
I mean, the great thing about legends is you can just say whatever the fuck you want. You can just make shit up. Every town is the most haunted town in X. Like Victoria, we're the most haunted town in Canada. Sure. But there's no fucking metric for that. You can just say it. We're the handsomest podcasters in the paranormal field. Sure, fuck it. There, it's fact now.
We're definitely the most moisturised.
That is true. That is
I've got some lovely new after sun on today. Anyway, but yes, and it also deals with that kind of criticism about ghosts that you don't have modern ones. Well, jogging is a fairly modern phenomenon. This guy is seen in a vest and shorts. It's clearly a man that jogs.
Anyone who says there are no modern ghosts, they don't know jack shit about the paranormal. They're just saying stuff. There are so many stories that show that is not the case.
I don't know anything, but I'm still going to make a point about it.
Yeah, it's the subtitle of the internet.
Yes, it is. If you say you love something, I want to know why you hate something else, clearly.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's raise the bar and talk about this strange story about the party. My girlfriend and I are living in Regina with my sister. She'd recently met this wild guy and they were constantly drinking. They were out usually at the bars whilst Donna and I were laying our beds on our little basement suite. It was after midnight when we heard the front door crash open and a bunch of people come stomping in, like lots of footsteps and yelling, the typical after-bar party. I tell Donna I'd better go say hi before my sister's boyfriend comes down to get me, as he often would. I walked upstairs and the party is in full swing. I got to the top of the stairs and opened the door, and I was met with deafening silence. There was nobody there, and it was completely dark. A feeling of dread overcame me, and I was horrified to run back downstairs, turning on all the lights. Donna was terrified as we'd both heard the party and all the people coming rushing in. We moved out very soon after that, and I'd get extremely vivid dreams about a dead body in the walls for decades. I still get those nightmares, and it's always the same dream, and I remember that address clearly to this day. That's not unusual. It's rare, but it's not unusual. The party ghost atmosphere's been reported now and again, hasn't it?
Oh, sure. I mean, that was my first experience in the old apartment, was laying in bed.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And yeah. But, I do wonder if there's like a little bit of maybe a fae-folk element to this. I mean, because I was thinking about the story Nick told me a little while ago when she was thinking about growing up in the duplex. And sometimes she would hear the sound of a party next door, even though she knew the neighbors were gone and there was no one home. and she said it's the music. She described it as sounding like Shakespearean, so it's kind of like old timey instruments. But same idea. And I mean, it's. I wonder sometimes if some things like to party in the places where we're not.
Yeah, I mean, it is strange how it always seems to be in empty rooms as well. It's not happening whilst people are in there. I mean, I might have read a story where a party starts while somebody just sat there watching telly going, what the hell's going on here? What's happening? But, yeah, there always seems to be, you're adjacent to the area where the party is occurring. You go in and there's nothing there, obviously. So, I mean, once again, it's one of those many stringed bows, isn't it? Why would is it the emotional attachment? Is it the amount of energy expelled during that kind of situation? And if so, why is it not more common? Because parties are very, very, very common for numerous reasons, even like that. We've been to the pub and we want to carry on, so come on! It's not a party, it's just a piss-up, isn't it? It's not, somebody's not come in with a cake going, hey, happy Friday, let's get shit-faced.
Deal.
Sorry, you twisted my arm.
Yeah. Well, again, I kind of wonder if sometimes these things happen, but just folks aren't aware of them. As I say, there is that, and I've told this story 100 times on the show. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but when I was the time that it just felt like there was like something moving through this one part of Victoria at night, and it was taking the power grid down as it went. And to the point where I was out for a drive with a friend, and it kind of felt like we shouldn't go through that darkened area. It just felt like, no, this is not, don't go through there. And afterwards, after I dropped them off, that's when I heard the distant music, almost like a traveling carnival or something, coming from that direction. So I just think like sometimes it's just a combination of factors. Like there's someone there who's got the ability to hear it. Plus, this thing is actually just happens to be in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Round here, you just suspect that there's somebody's having a rave in the peaks, which has happened before. A couple of years ago, I remember going to the shop about 10 a.m. and you could clearly hear thumping dance music. I thought, where the fucking hell's that? And it all came out in the news that there'd been a rave in the peaks, and that was what we could all hear, like 5 miles away.
Sheffield, always a party.
Somewhere.
Based on everything you told me, I sort of imagine there's some manner of revelry happening in Sheffield at any given time.
Well, yeah, it's that old Yorkshire adage. It's 5 p.m. somewhere, so let's get shit-faced.
One last thing before we wrap it up. I finished that Lovecraftian horror game, Still Wakes the Deep, the one where they were talking shit about Barnsley. And as I finished the game, the credits are scrolling past, and one of their fucking offices is in Sheffield. I swear to God, I cannot escape that city.
Ah, intriguing.
Sheffield, just it. No matter where I go, it's like the Eye of Sauron following me.
Yes, we're on the rise again. We're on the rise. It's getting quite nice in Sheffield now. Stuff's finally getting finished off. It's only taken 20 years.
So you got to invest in a place early. Get there before it's cool, and let it kind of grow up around you.
Yes, we've got a giant xylophone in a park you can run on. All kinds of exciting things.
Amazing. It's like the ghost story, guys. Those of you who've been listening at the beginning, you got in early. The coolness grew up around you. And now we are our own giant xylophone in the park. And this has been our Saskatchewan episode. We hope you've enjoyed it. If you, of course, have your own stories from Saskatchewan, or if we got something wrong, shoot us an email, ghoststoryguys@gmail.com, or comment on Spotify or YouTube. We'd love hearing from you guys, and we would love, love, love to read your stories from Saskatchewan and the surrounding area. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with our Ghost Force shoutouts. Hey there, listeners. Before you reach for that skip 15 seconds ahead button, I promise you this isn't an ad. We wanted to take a minute to talk to you about mental health. On this show, I've always tried to be as honest and open as possible about my struggles with depression and anxiety, because even though we've come a long way towards acknowledging the very real damage these things can do, there is still way too much lingering stigma about reaching out for help. And when you start to feel like there's no help, it's easy to start feeling like there's no hope. But Paul has joined me today to remind you there is always hope and there's always help.
We're not going to try and talk you out of self-harming right now, because we know that's not how it works. Instead, what we wanted to do was tell you something now and hope that should things get bad, you'll remember it and make a phone call or send a text message before you make any permanent decisions. As someone who knows all too well just how important mental health can be, it's never too late to reach out.
In Canada, the number to call is 133-456-4566. In the USA, the new number to call is 988. That's 988.
In the UK, the number to call is 116123, or text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. In Australia, the number to call is 131114.
However bad shit seems, it will pass. And no matter what your brain might be telling you at any given moment, and believe me when I say I know this intimately, there are people who love you and people who care deeply about how you treat yourself. Should a time come when you find yourself despairing, please know that we've both been where you are, and there is a way back to the world. Take care. Welcome back. The Ghost Story Guys are Luke Greensmith, who helps us find our stories, Sarah Kent, who helps manage our Reddit community, Tanya Downing, who helps manage our Facebook community.
Our paranormal conductor is Mr. Brennan Storr.
And of course, my friend and co-host is the one, the only, the inimitable Paul Bestel, the paranormal Johnny Carson himself. That way, again, we gotta come up with the paranormal hot. What's it? The paranormal hot ones himself.
Available on a pillow, coming to you soon.
Oh, we can but hope. Host of Mysteries and Monsters, Paul. What's coming up on M&M?
I'm delighted to welcome back my old friend Ken Gerhardt as we dive into Mothman and other strange flying humanoid-type creatures from all around the world, and some rather hair-raising encounters that we dive into. So yeah, it's good fun, and so it's nice to catch up with Ken. Now he's in a slightly nearer time zone to the UK.
And where can everyone find you online?
You can find Mysteries and Monsters across most social media networks and all good and perhaps sometimes dubious podcast sites.
Fabulous. I'm largely the truth. You can find my photos on Instagram, my random musings on Blue Sky and Threads. Follow my movie watching on Letterboxd, and listen to my horror fiction show Fear Daily everywhere fine podcasts live. As we said at the top of the show, we couldn't do this without our patrons. It just would not happen. Folks who support the show financially, you allow this great big machine to keep moving, and we appreciate every single one of you. If you'd like to become part of that amazing community who also gets early ad-free access to all our episodes, bonus shows, additional conversations between myself and Paul, access to our monthly live stream, and all kinds of other good stuff, you can click the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys. That's patreon.com/ghoststoryguys, or become a friend of the cabin via Apple Podcasts or YouTube. Now, of course, you only get access to the live stream if you sign up via Patreon. It's just a quirk of the system. But however you support the show financially, we appreciate you very, very much. And of course, if you support the show at the $20 level and above, that makes you part of a little club we like to call Ghost Force. That's right. Patrons at the $20 level and above are part of Ghost Force. That doesn't make them better than everyone else, but it does make them cooler. This time around, the members of Ghost Force are
Ethan Saragon,
Amy Chamberlain,
Beth Riley Cadwell,
Beth Whitaker,
Charles Wood,
Crazy Mom Canada,
C.T.,
Dextress,
Eric Abel,
Floey Two-Hats,
Gabrielle Hollanders,
Hannah Brown,
Jade Morse,
Johnny Bonanani,
Jason R. Slaughter,
Slaughter, Jennifer Mullen,
Joseph Como,
Kissing Kate Barlow,
Liam Hudock,
Mara Noriega,
Mark Semler,
Megan Rocket,
Merlin Hansen,
Michelle Randall,
Name,
Peter Gunn 08.5,
Robin Dean,
Rutkin Runny Shenanigans,
Samantha Ellis,
Scrapbot 13,
Shannon Steyer,
Surreptitious Shipley,
and Trent Cannon.
You are the few. You are the spooky. You are Ghost Force. For real, guys, we cannot tell you how much we appreciate it. Again, we appreciate all of our supporters, but we especially appreciate the Ghost Force guys. You are nuts, and we love you for it. If you'd like to have your name read out in that segment, every second story episode, so on all the odd-numbered story episodes, click the link in the show notes or head to patreon.com/ghoststoryguys or sign up via YouTube. We also have the option there. All right. Paul, my friend, any guest spots coming up?
No.
Okay,
I
that makes that
have a
easy.
closed diary.
All right. But you do have a couple live spots coming up.
Yes, so I shall be appearing on the Saturday of the Strange Days Festival in early afternoon. I think I'm on at 1 o'clock. And I will be appearing on the Sunday at Parameet. So I can only get drunk on the Friday. I believe I'm the first on. But I'm also on the same day as the marvellous Dr. Kate Sherrill. So hopefully we'll see a few people at one or the other. And let's hope I don't get moved this time.
Yes. Yeah, that was a rough deal last time.
It was. I had to have a word with my agent.
As for me, my appearance on Where Did the Road Go? Doing the Missing 411, that finally dropped. I actually did that about a month ago. I assumed, I for some reason thought it was out already, but no, it just dropped on the 17th. So you can find that by listening to Where Did the Road Go? And I also did a spot on Spirits Uncorked a little while back, and that has also just been released. And of course, you have heard the hosts of Spirits Uncorked on this very podcast. We talked to them on one of our Talk Spooky episodes. So as always, with both Paul and my appearances on other shows, you'll find links in the blog at ghoststoryguys.com. And as for Paul's appearances at Parameet and on Strange Days, you will find links in the show notes to places where you can buy tickets for those events. All right. If you want some Ghost Story Guys merch, don't forget to head to our website at ghoststoryguys.com. You'll find all kinds of goodies there. You'll have not only our logos, but some of our episode covers as well. Some pretty cool stuff on t-shirts, stickers, travel mugs, all kinds of goodies. And again, that's at ghoststoryguys.com. And I guess that's going to do it.
Well, we'll be back next week. But until then,
into the darkness we go. Welcome to the Ghost Story Guys. I'm Brennan Storr.
I'm Paul Bessel.
And this is our opportunity to... Nope, that's incorrect. Sorry, fuck. Let's try that again. I was so confident.
It's muted, I pressed it, and it wouldn't work. And then it went off, muted itself again. Fucking thing. Bastards. Really trying to control myself not saying dilly dilly there. But I've said it lots now. Dilly dilly.
Dilly dilly, indeed.
Either way, I'm not putting it in my mouth.
But I will say one of the few people who've come for us hard was this one guy on Instagram. I posted a jokey meme about polyamorous people playing board games. And this guy he just went off, and he listens to the show. And he's like, "Oh, I can't believe you would judge people like us like this. I'm so disappointed in you." I thought, my guy, you've spent too much time on the internet. Your fucking brain is cooked. You're seeing enemies everywhere.
Is he chasing people across state lines? I'm okay. I can work with that. I understand what he means, but it's not 1958.
Moving on. Whenever the Empire comes up, I'm like, let's just keep going.
Not my fault. Everybody's wrong.